Hello YouTuber, welcome to Fine Dane. Today we are going to have a look at my full set review of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty for Historic Brawl. This time with all the green cards. If you're looking for the other parts, just look in the description. Let's jump right into it. So let's see. Zeus's Many Journeys, 1 in a green saga. First chapter, you may play an additional land this turn. Second chapter, you gain 3 life. Third chapter, transform into Likeness of the Seeker, a 3/3 enchantment creature, human monk. Whenever it becomes blocked, untap up to 3 target lands you control. So, the first chapter on its own is quite bad value-wise, because for you want your ramp spells to either like draw a card if it's an additional land, give you the additional land trigger multiple times, or just pull the land straight from the deck onto the battlefield. This does neither of those. The life gain is pretty relevant, and they don't even have to block this mediocre creature, so I don't think this will see play. Bamboo Grove Archer, 1 in green, 3/3 enchantment creature, Snake Archer, Defender Reach, and Channel. 4 in green, discarded, destroy target creature with flying. This is way too niche, and I don't think this will see play. Barrow of Memory, 2 in a green, 3/2 enchantment creature, human monk, 5 in a green. Put a +1/+1 counter on target enchantment creature. It gains trample on the end of turn. The thing is, this is extremely expensive for an effect that doesn't even work on like most of your creatures probably. So yeah, I don't think this will see play. Blossom Prancer, 3 double green, 4/4 creature spirit reach. Whenever it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of a library. You may reveal a creature or enchantment card from among them and put them into the hand. Put the rest on the bottom of the library in random order. If you didn't put a card into your hand this way, you gain 4 life. Way more threatening things at 5 mana in green, so I don't think this will see play. Boon of Boseiju, 1 in a green, instant. Target creature gets +X/+X at the end of turn, where X is the greatest mana value among permanents you control. Untap it. So this is another like buff spell that untaps creatures, which is pretty important in certain decks. So the big winner here is Marvin the Nurturer, because you want, in Marvin, you want cards that give her power and untap her, so she can tap for more and more mana each time. So yeah, this is a big win for Marvin. The thing that Marvin lacks though is just, you know, big draw spells. So when she gets those, like more of those again, then Boon of Boseiju is an amazing card in that deck, and yeah, nice card. Boseiju reaches Skyward, 3 in green. Saga, first chapter, search your library for 2 basic forests, put them into hand. Second chapter, put up to 1 target land from your graveyard on top of the library. Third chapter transforms into Branch of Boseiju, a reach enchantment creature with XX, where X is the number of lands you control. Well, technically this is a 0/0. There are some differences in that, but mostly irrelevant, right? So the first two, like, if I just look at this front side, I'm thinking, okay, the backside has to absolutely blow me away, and the backside doesn't do it, so I don't think this will see play. Careful Cultivation, 2 in a green, enchantment aura. Enchant artifact or creature. As long as enchant permanent is a creature, it gets +1/+3 and has reach and taps for double green. And then Channel, 1 in a green, discard Careful Cultivation, create a 1/1 green human monk creature token with add 1 green. So the really, like, I think this is definitely a playable card, because here's the thing. If you look at it just like a mana dork, this can be played at instant speed, basically uncounterable, right, at the opponent's end step, because you can just discard it and you have a mana dork. It's only a 1/1, but you know, it is instant speed, so there's some value in that. Like, we really don't have instant speed mana dorks, and sometimes it might come up that you use this on something, on 3 mana, on a creature. You can play another dork onto the field, and then on turn 4 you can just, let me quickly calculate. Let's say line walls on turn 1. No, not even that, right? So let's say you just play any 2-drop on 2, then on 3 you attach this to the 2-drop, and now it taps for double green, and you play another dork. And then on turn 4 you have your 4 lands, and then the that's 3 additional mana, right? That's 7 mana in total. So yeah, this can just ramp you quite a bit, and I think I like it. It's pretty modal. We will have to see. Usually if you play a lot of mana dorks, you have some value in them being actual creatures. So something like a Guardian Project triggers off of them. This does not trigger Guardian Project or Great Hedge, but it has some other utilities because of it. Yeah, I think this is an interesting card to keep an eye out for. Coiling Stalker, 1 and a green, 2/1 creature ninja snake. Ninjutsu for 1 and a green. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on top creature you control, and it doesn't have a +1/+1 counter on it. Spoiler alert, we only have 2 more ninjutsu green creatures, I believe. So you won't see a green ninjutsu deck happening. At least like maybe Sultai, right? Maybe Sultai. But for the most part, I don't think this effect is quite too strong. If you want a similar effect to that, we have Long Tusk Cup, I believe, a 2-mana 2/2 that when it deals combat damage to a player, you can gain 2 energy, and then you can spend 2 energy to put a +1/+1 counter on it. So yeah, this only grows 1 time and has a worse body than Long Tusk Cup, and that doesn't even see play all that often, so don't see it happening. Commune with Spirits. Green sorcery. Look at the top 4 of a library. You may reveal an enchantment or land, put them into hand, rest on bottom of library in random order. If you need card filtering in an enchantment deck, I don't think this is it, because this itself is not an enchantment. The one deck you might want to play this in is 5-color shrines, because then you can fix your mana with this and dig a bit deeper and find your shrines. So yeah, probably sees play in shrines, otherwise not a lot of play. The Dragon Kami Reborn, 2 and a green saga. Look, the first 2 chapters. Gain 2 life, look at the top 3, exile 1 of them face down with a hatching counter on it, then put the rest on the bottom of the library in random order. So by itself, this does absolutely nothing, right? And you potentially lose your creatures forever. But then it transforms into Dragon Kami's egg whenever the egg or a dragon you control dies. You may cast a creature spell from among the cards you own in exile with hatching counters on them without paying its mana cost. So basically instant speed, one of the creatures with hatching counters. It's pretty cool, but Dragon Tribal is usually not in green, so you would need to play this in 5-color dragons. The problem is that this needs to die for the effect to happen, and usually you're not the one choosing when this creature dies if you're playing a deck where it's effective in. So probably not great. Fade into Antiquity, 2 and a green, exile artifact or enchantment. Yeah, disenchant effects don't see play. Fang of Shigeki, a green 1/1 Death Touch enchantment creature. This thing will see play in exactly 1 deck, or maybe 2, maybe Toski as well, but Finn the Fangbearer really loves just 1-mana Death Touch creatures, so that is great density just for that deck alone. Other than that, like maybe if you are a bit more board-centric, like it can be a tech choice for Sithis. If you see a lot of Gruul and you're playing Sithis, this is a decent tech choice, because this is just a 1-mana cantrip and it draws immediately, and it's a really annoying blocker for the opponent to deal with. So if they're playing Gruul, they really don't like you just having a random Death Touch on the board. So yeah, if you see like mono green aggro, Gruul aggro, something along those lines, like big stompy aggro decks, and you're playing Sithis, I think this is a fine tech card for that as well. Favor of Zhukai, 3 in a green. Enchant artifact or creature, as long as enchant permanent is a creature, gets +3/+3 and has reach, and then channel, discard it, target creature +3/+3 until end of turn and reach. 4 mana for +3/+3 is the going rate. It's a slightly above rate, but don't think we'll see play. Next. Generous Visitor, a green 1/1 creature spirit. When you cast an enchantment spell, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, not even only itself. So this can grow extremely fast and is potentially extremely lethal if you're playing it again in something like Sithis. But this is not an enchantment, so I'm not sure if you want to play this in Sithis, just purely for the fact that this is not an enchantment. The thing is, Sithis plays very few non-enchantment cards, and most of those draw you cards, like something like a Celestial Champion. Those cards just like draw you cards whenever an enchantment gets played and draw you more and more and more cards, and this doesn't do that. So the big problem is if you just like go off and play keep just playing enchantments and top deck this is pretty bad, because you play this, you don't draw another card, and this just comes in as a vanilla 1/1 basically, and it's quite annoying for that. But you know, just this dropping on turn 1, it's quite threatening. Yeah, we will have to see. Geothermal Kami, 3 in a green, 4/3. When it enters the battlefield, you may return an enchantment you control to its owner's hand. If you do, gain 3 life. The stat line is pretty awful. The life gain effect probably doesn't matter. And the enchantment, like picking it up, it's usually like if you have a saga, you pick it up to your hand and then you can play it again. But that is so excuse me, so slow. I don't think I don't see it happening. Go Shintai of Boundless Vigor, 1 green 1/1, a legendary enchantment creature, Shrine, trample. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on target shrine for each shrine you control. So this thing can just grow extremely huge in the right deck, and that is Shrines. Does Shrines need a creature that grows extremely huge? Probably not. Does Shrine want a card that just has the card type Shrine for 2 mana on it? Absolutely yes. So even though it's like just a random creature, it can die, yes, but it's a 2 mana Shrine, and that alone has a lot of value. So I like it for Shrine decks. Grafted Growth, 3 in a green, enchantment aura, enchant land, enters the battlefield +1, get a +1/+1 counter on a target creature or vehicle you control. Enchanted land has add 2 mana of any one color. There are like a million of these effects, none of them see play, and I don't think this one see play either. Greater Tanuki, 4 in double green, 6/5, trample, enchantment creature. 2 green, discard it. Search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Instant speed, uncounterable. I think I would rather play Cultivate over this though. Like we have 2 at instant speed that also just sacrifice lands. Harrow, for example, is one of them. And I'd rather have the utility of sacrificing lands, but maybe like you play that would be the 3rd like land ramp effect at instant speed that we have, that just pulls out of the deck. We also have Growth Spiral, so that's, yeah, the Growth Spiral is also instant speed, so and then Eureka Moment, but we really don't have that many effects that just ramp you at instant speed. So in some Simic builds you might want to play this. But other than that, I don't see it happening. Harmonious Emergence, 3 in a green, enchanted land you control. Enchanted land is a 4/5 green spirit creature with vigilance and haste. It's still a land. If it would be destroyed, instead this enchantment is basically destroyed. So the big thing here is that this is effectively 5 mana, because you have to play this at 5 and then you attack with the spirit, with the creature, the land, sorry. It has vigilance, so you can tap it afterwards, but you know, what are you going to do with 1 mana that late in the game? So I don't see it happening. Hero of Ancient Fang, 3 in green, 2/3, enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it if you control a modified creature. So in the best case scenario, this is a 3 mana 3/4, and in the best case scenario, that's pretty bad. Historian's Wisdom, 2 in a green, enchantment aura, enchant artifact or creature enters the battlefield. If enchanted creature is a enchanted permanent is a creature with greatest power among creatures on the battlefield, draw a card. As long as enchanted permanent is a creature, gets +2/+1. So if we ever play green Voltron decks, this is certainly a staple in those decks, because this just puts puts a decent buff on something for a reasonable price and draws you a card, more importantly, because Voltron decks just like cantripping Voltron pieces, because they tend to run out of cards at some point. So yeah, this is absolutely fantastic for those decks and pretty garbage in every single other one. Invoke the Ancients, 1 and 4 green sorcery. Create 2 4/5 green spirit creature tokens for each of them. Put your choice of vigilance counter, reach counter, or a trample counter on it. So the thing is, the mana cost is super restrictive, but these tokens are massive. 4 or 5 tokens are usually to make this big tokens, we have to go through a lot of hoops and whatever. This just creates the tokens for you. So if you have a way of copying tokens, or making more tokens with something like a Anointed Procession, not doubling season, parallel lives, something along those lines, right? You have those effects, that is amazing, but I think ultimately the casting cost is quite restrictive. Hugin Defends the Temple, 2 to green, Saga, first chapter, created 1/1 mana dork. Second chapter, put a +1/+1 counter on each up to 2 creatures. Third chapter, transforms into Remnant of the Rising Star, a 2/2 enchantment creature flying. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay X. If you do, put X counters on that creature. And as long as you control 5 or more modified creatures, it gets +5/+5 and has trample. So this thing is quite threatening, allows you to turn every single 1-drop you play into a 10/10 or something like that, if you have, provided you have enough mana, right? It goes really the long way in the game. But I don't think the early game is quite threatening enough for those decks, because the backside wants to be played in aggressive decks, and the front side is far from being an aggressive, so probably not going to see play. Zhukai Preserver, 3 in green, 3/3 enchantment creature, human druid. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, and then channel. 3 and a green, discard it, put a +1/+1 counter on each up to 2 target creatures you control. Nothing here excites me. I think everything here is below average for what you're going to play in your average historic Brawl deck. Zhukai Trainee, 1 in a green. Whenever a Zhukai Trainee blocks or becomes blocked, it gets +1/+1 at end of turn. The key part here is that this is not a if this was always a 3/3, or just whenever it attacks or blocks, you would play this in something like Galta for sure, just like an overstatic creature. But the fact that it has to get blocked to get the buff instead of just on attack, probably not good enough. Kami of Transients, 1 green, 2/2. Trample. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Kami of Transients. of each end step. If an enchantment was put into your graveyard from the battlefield this turn, you may return to Kamigawa Transients from your graveyard to your hand. So for enchantment decks, you really want to have a really high mass of enchantments. This is not an enchantment, so that is the big downside to this. Although this thing grows extremely quickly into something sizable, and it is comparable to the one drop we reviewed earlier. With two upsides, this thing doesn't really die, it always returns back to your hand basically. And also this thing has trample, which is highly relevant. It's basically the same call. If you play the other creature, you're playing this. If you don't play one, you're not playing the other one as well, right? It's like, the problem is, again, this is not an enchantment, so I'm kind of on the fence about it. Kappa-Tech Wrecker, 1 green, 1/3 Ninjutsu for 2, enters the battlefield with a death touch counter on it. When it deals combat damage, remove a death touch counter from it. And if you do, exile target artifact or enchantment that player controls. So it's a slightly conditional like enchantment exile effect, and we have that already. There is a changeling that does something similar, Mask Vandal. And that sees play in some decks, and this will probably see play in way less decks because you have to go through way stricter conditions to actually kill the artifact of your choice, whereas the Masked Vandal is immediate. So I think this won't see play. Kodama of the West Tree, 2 green, 3/3 legendary creature, Spirit Reach, modified creature you control have trample, and then whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage to a player, search a library for a basic land card, put it onto play, tapped, and then shuffle. So this can be a commander. I don't see necessarily the point of this being your commander, but this can be your commander. Like, this allows you to ramp, but what are you ramping into? And you know, this doesn't ramp on its own. You need to set up your creatures, so I'm not seeing this neither in the 99 or in the command zone. Kura the Boundless Sky, 3 and double green, 4/4. It's one of those dragons again. Flying Death Touch. When it dies, choose one. Either search your library for up to 3 land cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle, or create an XX green spirit creature tokens where X is the number of lands you control. Notably, this is just searching any 3 lands, can, like, non-basic as well, doesn't care about anything, so that is pretty amazing. But it has to die for that effect. And with Field of the Dead being banned, these, like, any land search effects have become way worse. So I don't think this will see play. And just as a beat stick, and then just using the second death option, I also don't think this will see play. March of Burgeoning Life. Exile green. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you may exile any number of green cards from your hand. The spell costs 2 less to cast for each card exiled this way. Choose target creature with mana value less than X. Search your library for a creature card with the same name as that creature, put it onto battlefield, tapped, then shuffle. I mean, this is extremely hard to make work. You can make it work, but will it work? Like, in response to this activating, you could shuffle your own creature back, so you get something with the same name. But yeah, same name. That alone, like, apart from this card being a disappointment in other ways as well, yeah, same name ruins this card. Mass's Rebuke, 1 green, instant, target creature you control deals damage equals to power to target creature planeswalker you don't control. Yeah, this is definitely one of the better fight effects. We do have Blizzard Brawl, we do have Primal Might, but if you want a third one, this might be the one. So, yeah. Although fourth one, Inscription of Abundance, is also probably better. Orochi Merge Keeper, 1 green, 1/1, add 1 green. So, a new Mandalork is in town, and as long as it's modified, it has it taps for 2 green, which is, you know, it's not nothing. This is definitely a mana dork. that you're going to play in +1/+1 counter decks, similar to Incubation Druid. Incubation Druid can fulfill its own condition, which is why it is so commonly played and can tap for more colors than just green. But if you're playing something along the lines of like just some Selesnya strategy that, you know, puts counters on a lot of things, this is probably high up on your list of mana drugs that you want to play, because this just randomly taps for double green after it has a counter on it. So yeah, nothing fancy, but, you know, nice for some decks. Roaring Earth. 1 in a green enchantment. Whenever land enters the battlefield you control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or vehicle you control, and then channel X double green, discard it, put X +1/+1 counters on target creature on target land you control. It becomes a 0/0 green creature. With haste, it's still a land. This channel effect is extremely expensive, especially if you want to immediately attack with the land. You're paying like 7 mana for a 4/4, which is like awful stats. If you play it for the front side, landfall decks usually want a different effect. They rather have a effect that puts a body into play instead of enhancing existing bodies. Season of Renewal, 2 in a green instant. Choose one or both. Return target creature card from your graveyard to hand. Return target enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. This is a pretty. It's a double regrowth, but regrowth effects usually see play alongside blue, and then bringing back extra turns. But I don't see this being too good out in general, because this can't bring back extra turns. Shigeki Zhukai Visionary. 1 in a green, 1/3 legendary enchantment creature, Snake Druid. 1 in a green, tap, return it to the owner's hand, reveal the top 4 of your library. You may put a land among them into the battlefield, tapped, and then put the rest into your graveyard. And then channel XX green, discard it, return X non-legendary cards from your graveyard to your hand. So this is pretty like a bit of a mouthful. If you're playing this as your commander, I think this is extremely slow in what it wants to do. You might want to do this. If this is your commander, you can play this, return to hand, and then later use the channel, even though it's your commander, because it can return itself to hand, which is interesting, but everything about this screams way too slow for me, whether it be in, the 99 or the command zone. Notable mention here is Gitrock Monster. You put a land, if you reveal 2 lands, one of them in hand, one of them graveyard, you draw a card of Gitrock. Everything is fine and dandy, but it is just so expensive. Spinning Wheel Kick XX green sorcery. Target creature you control deals damage equal to power to each of X target creatures and or planeswalkers. Too much setup, way too expensive. Yeah, probably not going to see play. Springleaf Avenger, 3 double green, Jutsu 4/4. Oh, it's a 6/5. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. This actually might see play, because 5 mana 6/5 is not nothing, and the effect can be quite nice and grindy for certain decks. I think this is obviously not an Elder Gargaroth, right, that you usually get at 5 mana, but it is worth considering in some decks, I think. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure what exactly we're going to do with this, but I wouldn't be surprised if this would see play, at least a bit. So yeah, a cool card. Story Weave, 2 in a green. Choose one. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, or put 2 lore counters on target saga you control. The next time one of our enchantment creatures enter the battlefield under your control this turn, Each enters with 2+1/+1 counters on it. This is obviously only ever good if you're playing in a Saga deck. And how good will Saga Tribal be? Probably pretty bad. But for the sake of like just reviewing this card, if you're playing Saga Tribal, you're probably playing this. But even then, I'd just rather have interaction. Tales of Masters Seshiro, 4 and a green, Saga. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or vehicle you controlled against Vigilance until end of turn for the first 2, and then Chapter 3 transforms into a 5/5 Vigilant H enchantment creature. Big problem here is this is an aggressive body behind a non-aggressive like first 2 chapters, so I don't think this will see play. Tammy of Safekeeping, just a green, instant. Target permanent you control gains hexproof and indestructible at the end of turn. You gain 2 life. This is insane. You're going to see this in every single king in the deck from now on. This is basically the best protection spell we have now for 1 green. First and foremost, why is this not white? Like, I want this to be white. Why is this green, right? I mean, it also, fits into green, but this is one of the very, very few effects. Like, I think this is the first 1-mana unconditional effect that gives hexproof and indestructible on Arena. So that is extremely, extremely potent in protecting a single thing. It's basically whenever you have like a command that you want to protect in green, this is just amazing at doing that job. So yeah, this will see a lot of play, and basically until the end of time. Teachings of the Kirin, 1 green, first chapter, mill 3 cards, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token. Second chapter, put +1/+1 counter on target creature that you control. The third chapter transforms into Kirin Touch Orochi, an enchantment creature with whenever it attacks, choose 1. Either exile target creature from a graveyard. When you do, create a 1/1 colorless spirit token. Or a exile non-creature card from a graveyard. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So, just for the first 2 chapters, you're playing this, and you're effectively getting a 2/2 as soon as, like, because you're getting a 1/1, you're milling, and then as soon as the 1/1 can attack, it immediately gets a counter, or like puts a counter on something else. So it's like, it's not awful stat line wise. Milling 3 cards can be quite relevant. If you're playing self-mill, you want to play this. If you're playing Muldrotha, you want to play this because it's also an enchantment, and that you can bring back later on with Muldrotha. So that is pretty cool. And the problem is Kirin Touch Orochi. When this attacks, maybe you exile a non-creature and then it gets +1/+1 counter, right? So it's 2/2, but it's going to get blocked and can only attack ever once. It's like, nice, but like, I don't think this will see play in too many decks because it's a little bit too fair. It's a bit too fair. Weave of Harmony, 1 green, 2/2 enchantment creature, Snake Druid. Other enchantment creatures you control get +1/+1. And then 1 green, copy target, activate, or triggered ability you control from an enchantment source. You may choose new targets for the copy. This is pretty nice for enchantment deck. I mean, I'm just going to repeat myself. Sithis is having a field day with the set, right? But as to be expected if we get enchantment creatures. The cool thing is, like, we have fewer enchantment creatures, like actual enchantment creatures, than we might like. So the first line is not too relevant. It buffs Sithis, yes. The big thing here is this itself is an enchantment creature. And for specifically Sithis, this says pay 1, tap, draw a card. Because you can just copy the triggered ability of Sithis, and then, like, if you play something like an Elspeth's Conqueror's Death, you can copy the triggered ability of that, so you can do some real nice shenanigans. So I think this is not a must 100% all include, but it's certainly a strong choice. Web Spinner's Cuff. 2 in the green. Under artifact creature 1/4. Reach. Equipped creature gets +1/+4. It has reach. Reconfigure 4. This is in the wrong colors to be playable, and not aggressive enough, I think. So I don't see it happening. Boseiju Who Endures. Legendary land. Tap for a green. Channel. And 1 in green, discard Boseiju, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or non-basic land an opponent controls, and then they can search a library for a basic land, put it into the battlefield, and then shuffle, and costs 1 less for each legendary creature you control. Yeah, again, this whole legendary land cycle is going to be an absolute staple, but this is probably just the best land out of all of them. This very, very frequently just costs 1 green. A few things to note. The opponent does not have to search a library, like for Field of Ruin. So that has some implications if you put their commander on top and you give them the choice, right? Put it on top or to commands on. And then if they choose put it on top, what you can do with Field of Ruin is that you shuffle their library, force them, and now their commander is just somewhere randomly in the library. And they don't have the choice of putting it into command zone because it's not changing zones, it's staying in the library. But this is giving the opponent the option. And then the land comes into the battlefield untapped. So if you're playing against an instant speed deck, that might be relevant if you're doing this in their end step. But overall, in uncounterable, basically, artifact enchantment removal, it is extremely potent. Yeah. I think this was it. Yeah, that was it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.